All right, so we'll get started. Today we'll try to finish up on the lab X with the exercise 6. So sorry for the confusion again. I think we get you get mixed up, but we get mixed up before you get mixed up. But hopefully now it's going to go smoothly. And then we'll get back on track with the course. Okay. So let me share the screen and then share, and then we'll take it from you. Actually, I want to share the whole screen. The desktop. Here we go. Okay. So last time we did a little bit of the first one. So the idea here is that you learn how to use a framework by doing simple exercises, and towards the end I give you basically an app that is number 4 here, that is ready to go with a bunch of graphics already in the pages that you can use to do the homework. So it's going to be very close to what you need to do for the homework, but not that close that you just compile it and add a graphic. You need to do a little bit of work with it. So is it worth that I go back again to this one, use the CLI to create a new app, or everybody is good with that? Nobody is good with that. Yes? Speak out? The quiz, I'll open it up after we're done. Sorry? I know. I'll give you the password later. Okay. So I'll go quickly through this one then. Okay, so let me maybe arrange a little bit this window so we see where we are. So here probably we want to do this in a console. All right. Okay, so I'm assuming that the first step is clear for everyone. So what we're doing there is that we're installing the CLI. So CLI stands for a command line interface. So it's just the good old executable that you call. In this case, it's called view. So in order to install it, you need to ask npm to do it for you, because this is a node executable. So it's just a JavaScript that is going to be installed in the system, and then you can use it. So to create a new app, you use, so this is Git-like. So if you do view -- help, is going to tell you, whoops, yeah, it doesn't like my 2 zeros, is going to tell you what it's able to do. And you see it's Git-like in the sense that it has these commands. So you can say view do this, view do that, in the same way that you say git clone, git commit, git push. Okay. So the one that we want to do is the command that we want to use is create. So we can do git create. And then you see it tells you that it needs an app name. And you have a bunch of defaults there that you can set up, but most of the defaults are good enough with us. You see that here it is going to create a repository for you and initialize Git. If you are inside the repository, I think it's smart enough to not create one, but you can force him to do so, as you can see there. So we'll go with the default, and we just say this. Okay. Now, not everybody, I think, has this line. I think what they do is that if you run it once, then they keep track of it and they appear. So what we want is to use a router and then the view X that is useful if you need to store information across pages. If you don't have the line, then you want to go manually select feature. And here you can select the router. So you go on the line and you click the space bar for the router and view X, and then you just pick a preset. Okay. Choose a version of view. So we're going to go with 2 because the new version, I think it's just to get out. So we don't want to. The history mode, this is mostly for deployment, so that when you hit the back button in the browser, it kind of remembers where you were before. So the default is yes, we accept that. This is the linter that is going to help you not make mistakes as you write code, and yeah, that's cool. We just accept everything there and just go on. This is good to us too. And you see it asks if I want to save it, and I'm saying I'm not going to save it because I have it already. Yeah, is that anything? You have any trouble with that? Mm-hmm. If you were asking to redo it, why? You have any trouble with this part? Maybe later on. Oh, so if you're in Windows, probably you don't need the sudo, yeah.
After I use the install and I still
okay. Okay. So you're still having the problem? You cannot run it? Okay, but maybe it's better that you ask somebody who has a Windows system, because they have Mac. I don't know if I can help you out. Otherwise, this thing is if you go in their GitHub their npm page, there are millions of people who are using it. So whatever problem you have there, especially if it's just to get the app going, my guess is that a lot of people already run into it, and it should be documented. Okay, so once you're done, you see here that it tells you what to do next. So we're going just to follow the instructions. So now we don't need to do the npm install because it did it already. So if we look in here, there is already a node module, so we're basically ready to go. And then we can do npm run serve. Okay, now here I'm outside of the repository. You may want to do it inside the repository so you can commit these files to show that you did the homework, right? Okay, and so it's there. Because we're not in Visual Studio Code, I need to go and copy this thing, which I'm going to do it here. And here we see that it works. And it's always a good thing to go and check the console that there are no errors. So we're happy with this. Now, if we stop the server, obviously we instantly get an error because it cannot connect to the server anymore. Okay. Here we go. So it's good. Okay, so now if you want to add Bootstrap, so if you use the older version of Vue, you have two choices. One is to use the older version of Bootstrap. That is wrapped into what is called here Bootstrap Vue. That is basically a wrapper that creates components for Vue, so you can directly say I want a button as an HTML tag. And so maybe we can just go and do that. So here this is a little bit incorrect, because if you look in the Vue Bootstrap Vue, Bootstrap Vue, Bootstrap Vue here. So these are the icons. We want to go there. We just want to see. Okay, you see there they say Bootstrap 4. That is the previous version. Now it's 5. The new one, there is no Bootstrap Vue for it. So you need to learn the boot. Yeah, you need to learn a little bit how to do things in Bootstrap as opposed to here where you have the components. But it's up to you what you want to use for the project. What I wanted to go and do here, I think somewhere in here. Oh, getting started. Getting started. Here you see they say version 4.3.1 is required. 4.5.3 is recommended. So instead of doing what is here, we're going to do like this. We're going to force npm to install that version of Bootstrap. So the S, you don't need it anymore. I thought I said this, but we didn't remove it from there because it's going to automatically update the package.json. And here I want to force it to 4.5.3, so you can do it this way. It will work also for the sake of the example if you go with Bootstrap, but then some things may not work as you expect. And so here we can see that they added here Bootstrap version 4.5.3 here. Okay. So it's basically ready to use, but because Vue is a framework, and so what it does is that it doesn't just it is going to create HTML from whatever is the Vue files. So you need to tell him how to use Bootstrap, and so the way to do it is that you need to go into what is the main file, that is the main.js, and explain that it needs to use Bootstrap Vue, and if you want the icons, then you need to add this thing, the icons plugin, and then tell Vue to use the object for both. The CSS obviously is the other piece that needs to be imported as well. So this is the statement that all need to go in that file. So rather than to try to edit the file here, I'd rather start a new Visual Studio Code here. So I have it handy. Okay, you might get this because it's saying that I don't know where you get these files from. So we're going to accept it. And we need to go to the main. So all the files are into source, that what gets compiled eventually into HTML. It is going to complain. We're going to see it now. If I start this, we're going to probably get an error message at some point. No, we don't. Yeah, here it is. So this is the Vetour extension that hopefully you have already installed. If you didn't, then you don't get these files to be colored, and it's not going to tell you when you're making mistakes into them. So you should really install it. Yeah. So this extension needs to know what is the code that you're going to write. either TS that is for TypeScript or JS that is just JavaScript. And it does this with this file. So if you click here, learn more is going to tell you what to do. I think by clicking here, yeah, I think we're clicking here. No. Okay. Read more, project setup, it's here. So we need to create this file. So I'm going to just copy this, new file, and we're going to save this as config.json. So I'm doing it here. You know, you can dismiss the error, nothing bad happens, but if you eventually want to use this for your project, you don't want to see this error every time you open it. Warning, it's a warning, it's not an error. Is that correct? Yeah, so here I think we're in the source. So you need to put it at the top folder where the readme and the package.json is. Okay, so I'm going to save it. And now if we close this and we restart it and we reopen the file, it shouldn't bother. Where is it? Yeah, you see it just reopened and we don't have an error now, okay? No warning dialog yet. Okay, so the main.js is here. So this is the JavaScript that does all the machinery. And here it creates, you see the view object with the router, the store where we can store our data. And this is going to render the pages, which means create the HTML. So we go back to, I'm going to close this one to here, and we need to add these things, which we can do just here. That will work. So you see that this is using view. So this import here is needed. So I didn't put it in here because if you put it anywhere in this file, this code will work. And you've noticed also that I didn't do the usual npm install, npm run serve, which I should maybe do. So the install, we don't need it because we just created it. The npm run serve, I think if you touch the main.js, I'm not sure if it's going to actually take this as an actual change. I think it does, but it has some trouble finding the pieces, and I'm not sure it works to do the refresh with the browser. So when you change these things or the roots, I'm going to show you how to do this in a moment. Usually it's better to restart it. So we have it here. So if you go to the okay, so this is, yeah, I just put the code there. So this code here, let's go open this file here, the home.view. So I tell you what is what. So in views, you have the different pages. So you've noticed that in the app here, we have home and about. So, right, these two, so these are two different pages that are mapped to a different route. So this is the default route. You see there is no extension here. And then the about is mapped to about, okay? Now this is handled by the router that is here. But before we go there, I want to show you the files, what they look like. So this is the home file. So you have this is the quasi HTML part of it. That's where you can write your what is going to be materialized inside the page. And this part here is the model view controller. Because you can put your data in there. You see, for the moment here, there are no data because we don't have data, but you see it's referencing a component. So this is another kind of a widget, if you want, that you can put in the page that is reusable. So, and this one is found in components. And you see it has the same structure with template. So here it has a bunch of HTML. And it has here the model view controller as well. And at the end, you have the style components. So the style you can, if you set scoped, it will only apply to this component. If you don't set it, it applies to the whole app. But that's about it. Now, again, they look like HTML. This is not HTML. Don't kid yourself, because this is just a flat file that it's called .view for a reason. Because Vue is going to read it and is going to produce HTML from it, based on what you set here in the view, that is the template part, and the model controller here that is this following part. So we'll get back to this to do how you use this mechanism here of components to do your reusable charts. But for the moment, we can just continue with the home view here. And what we want to do is just add a couple of Bootstrap buttons. So here the code I got from the Bootstrap website, so you can go there, view Bootstrap. Okay, components. And so here you have all sorts of things. I'll let you explore that, but let's say that we want some buttons here. This is the code that I got. So I just basically copy this and go and paste it here. So you can paste it anywhere in this file inside the template. And you see that the template has a div outside that is called home, based on the name of the view. So the actual visible HTML needs to be inside. If you try to put it outside, Vetour is going to tell you that you are not doing something right. So you just go in there and put it in here. Okay. The formatter, I discourage you from formatting anything in these files by end. So you can do it like this, which takes you forever. The better way is just you select everything and you do format document, and you have things formatted as you expect. I think the formatting areas doesn't work because of this template, and then the other the model and the controller that are separate. So here we go. So if I save, as you see that he recompiles it, and if we go in here in the home, then we get our buttons, right? So you see the buttons are all stuck one next to the other. So if you look into Bootstrap, you can class this with some space. So you can add margin with M. We're going to add 2 pixel margins all around the buttons, and that's it. Okay. Okay, so so you see that it's if you need to do stuff quick, this is the right way to do it, as opposed to start writing tons of HTML, etc. Right? And so here is the simple example with the button, but you can do much more complicated, obviously, than that. And we're going to see with the charts other things that you can do where you can link your data into here. So I think this is it for this part, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I wanted to show you the router maybe before we go. So the router is this file here. I think in the older version they didn't. I don't know if in the Vue app that I'm giving you, the router is here, or it's just a router.js that is outside. But both ways, the structure is basically the same. So it's using this router object that is the from Vue router, as you can see there. And then in here, basically, it lists all the page that you can navigate. So you see here the home. So the home here is kind of imported at the top. So you have 2 choices. Either you do that, you import it at the top, and then you use it in this way. And these are the routes. So you're saying that if I go to slash, which means that to the base address, I'm right here. So, oops, sorry. This is the base address. Then I want to load this component home, and its name is home. Okay. So you try to be consistent with the name, and usually things work as you expect. If you are inconsistent, then you may run into trouble. The second way to add a route is what they do it here. They do here, and this is a dynamic one, so it's not imported, but this is going to get imported when you actually go and ask for it. So here the path is about. So if I'm going to go in this page and I put this in the URL, then this gets to the router. The router says, oh, okay, you're asking for this path. So I'm going to give you this about. And what I'll do is that I'll import the component for that dynamically. So as you see, it's the same thing, but here it's imported dynamically. Yeah. And that's useful because otherwise, if you have a lot of data into your page, into multiple pages, then you need to, people need to wait for all the pages to be loaded before you actually see the home page, right? In this way, you can lazy load the rest of the pages. You just load what you first show to the user. The rest you usually don't touch. This is the history mode that we've set up when we configured it. And that's about it. So really you just add pages here. So the workflow is you create a new view for it. So here, if I want to create a new view, I'm going to say, I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to rename it, I don't know, home2. So you want to be consistent with the name. You see it's here, it's home, and it's lowercase. I'm not going to touch that. This one, I'll call it home2. The rest is fine because it's going to do the same thing. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so I have my home2 view here. But now I need to tell the router that I want to use it. So if I'm going to do a static one, I'm going to do it this way. And here it's not showing with the full saturation for the colors because we are not using it yet, and it tells you you have this home2 that is declared, but you're not actually using it. So what you need to do, you guessed it, you come here and you do home2. And we need to give a different path because otherwise you won't be able to resolve it. So here I'm going to call it home, or I can call it home2, whatever you like. And normally it works. If it doesn't work, we may want to restart it. Right. So we see the same thing because we just copied the other one, right? Now this is accessing using the URL. So we tap directly into the app, but you may want to access using a menu. So what we need to do is that we need to go and see where these menus are. So the best place to put them is usually in the app.view, and that's what they did here, because this is code that is shared by all the views, right? So in here, what you see what they put is that they put the navigation bar. So here, if I want to add another one, I'm going to do like this. Here we go, router link. So yeah, let's change this one. So home2, and this looks good to me. Okay. Now, if you do it with Bootstrap, so sometimes you want the home to look different. right? So now we have it here. So if you want this one to look different, usually they have an active property on the tag that is active. So this one you would say active either like this or active equal true, I think, and then it would look different. Okay, because usually it's better. So Bootstrap has also obviously toolbars and bars that you can have floating or all types that you can use for depending on what is it that you're doing with your dashboard. Okay, so now the last thing is obviously to test that this works. And you see that here it doesn't work because I have a space. I have a space in the root. Did I save this? Okay. Okay. So this is the when you set up the link, you see I have a space. You see here? Oh, here. You see down here the link comes up with a space, and that's the problem. So the space is replaced with this %2. That is the character as the space character. So this we set it up in here in sorry, yes, app.view, and here. This is not good. I need to do like this, and you see that this is not the root because the root is lowercase, I think. So you just need to be a little bit careful with that. Name, pass, yeah, you see the pass here, the root for the pass is lowercase. So in here, we need to use the lowercase version of it. I'm going to do this, and if I go here, so now if I click here, yeah, okay, this was updated, but sometimes what happens is that yeah, unless you change code, the app will not reload, right? It's not because you go to a different page that things are reloaded. Because here, all these pages are either loaded when the app loads with the import, as you saw for the home, or they're deferred when you click, if you use the second mechanism in the router, as we did as we saw with the about, right? So about, for the moment, I never clicked on it, so it hasn't been loaded. And so you can change the code in the about, even if the app doesn't reload completely, then this is going to work. So here you see that the home tool is working. Okay, so no question about this. So you need to be patient with these things. It's easy to do things, but it's easy also to do it wrong. And you see, it's very little code that you need to write. But if you don't write it correctly, then you're usually in trouble. The Axios, this is because sometimes you want to load data not directly with D3. So D3, we saw it's useful if you want to do charts with D3, but say if I want to do a chart with just plain HTML, I don't need D3. We saw how to do that. Then you need some type of tool to go and fetch the data for you. So basically do what d3.csv and d3.json does. And one such tool is Axios. There is also the fetch that you can use that works a little bit similar, but I've been using this one and I kind of like it. So I'm giving you here an example. So what I suggest here is that we go and get from the view app this JSON file, and we load it into our Hello World component. Yeah, I don't know why I did the home. No, into the home view. We could do it also in the component with Axios and set it up as some data. So it's basically here. So I'm going to just you know, I'll do it little by little so that you see what is it that I'm adding, but the pieces are here. And you see that this template is not involved. of the endpoint, because all we want to do is just get the data in. So the best time to do that is when the page first loads, right? Because as soon as the page loads, you want to have your data ready. And that you can do with the mounted. So mounted here is a function that is an entry point that is called, and you can call the callback function on it, where as soon as the page is going to be shown, you can do something. And here what we're going to say is Axios go get the planets.json, okay? Now, where do we go get it and where do we put it? So I'm going to just put it where here it's suggested. Okay, so I'm going to stop this. Do we have a public here? Yes, we have a public. Okay, so you see that this file is already in the public directory, and we're going to put it back in there. Maybe. Oh, okay. It is not there because. Okay, because I'm not in the homework, but if you're in the homework, you can get it there. So I'll go get it. The AX starter / view app / public / planets. The JSON, and we're going to copy to this in public. Okay, so for you don't need to put the whole path. Okay, so why do we put it in public? So if you look in public, you have a couple of things. The 5 icon here is the thing that appears up here in the browser, right? The little view symbol there. If you open the icon, that's the format that is used for that. The index is an entry point for view. So if you look into index, you'll see that it is basically asking view to actually go and populate it. Here it is. You see it starts with things that we can understand, but then you see that it calls this webpack thing. So this is something that packages basically all the JavaScript and ships it to the browser. So and the view CLI does this dynamically as you type. And then we've added this planets file. So these public files are accessible files in the web server that we're running here with an equivalent of browser sync that the CLI has. And so they're public, but it doesn't mean that you can access them just because you're running the app. Yes? Because you do need a web server to access it still. And so because you need a web server, what happens is that the index gets loaded when you load the app with the all you expect that view creates and that you see, right? And this is done through an HTTP request to the local host 8080. Right? That's when we get the website, right? Now, if in one page we want to go and get data back from the server, we need to go and ask it. And so that's where we're going to say, as soon as the page loads, we're going to use Axios, and Axios is going to do a web request to this very same address. And then you can access the files through the HTTP protocol. Okay, you cannot just access them because here we're in the client, and the files are on the server. Always keep that in mind. Okay, so the file is here because a lot of people think, okay, I put the file there. Oh, and I try to load it with show me this picture, and you just put the URL, the picture name, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because this file is not on the client. This file is on the server, and you need to serve it. So you need to do HTTP request. Okay. Hopefully today is the last day where we go about all this JavaScript thing, and then we concentrate on charting. Okay. Yeah. So we wanted to follow up on that and just load the code to. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is import the Axios. So I'm going to go and open the home. Where is our home? It's here. And you see that the outside of the template, we have script that's where thing gets imported here. So we're going to come here and import Axios. So it's a wiggly red line because we're not using it. And when we want to use it is when the page gets first mounted. So in view speak, that means that we need to create this mounted entry point here. So you see that this is just an object that the view uses to configure itself. And so we just need to add this anywhere here. And here we can add a function that does something. Okay. And what we wanted to do is to use Axios to go get the file. And you see that Axios is just working with promises. And when it returns, is going to give us back the file. The data comes in the file. So I'm going to refrain from formatting. I'm going to do the format, the whole thing. Okay. So here it's get, not for just because it looks good. But this is the get protocol, right? So you can do a get request, or you can do a, so it's not the protocol, it is the request type. So you can either do a get or you can do a post. The difference between the get and the post is that with the get, the arguments go into the URL, where you've seen this, where you say whatever, right? So here it's argument 1 equal hello, yeah? So this is a get request, and there is so much that you can put in there. The other one is the post request, and the arguments, they go into the header, and there you can put as much stuff as you want, and that's useful when you need to upload data, for instance. So then when this resolves, then we should get something into result, and here we're console logging it. And here, the last line, I'm going to comment it for now. So we're going to see if this works. Okay. So the way this works is that I expect that when I get into the page, I'm going to see this. Okay. And then we're going to also maybe to try to see if we can trace it. Yes, my app. So npm run serve. So the workflow here, I'm showing it for Vue, but if you use Angular or if you use React, it's the same idea, right? So the way you do things is different, but the way you proceed is the same. Failed to compile with one error. Okay, good. No. Okay, so you see, so usually these are a little bit cryptic. It's like, oh my God, what is going on? The big red error. So just take the time to relax, and you read the error a little bit. So usually it's useful. So it's telling you Axios in wherever it is. So it has some trouble with Axios in node modules. Did we install Axios? Probably not, right? So that's the first thing to check. So we're going to go look in here. Do we have Axios? I don't see an Axios in here. Should be somewhere up here, right? So we need to back up a step and say npm install Axios, which I think I had it in here, but I didn't do it. Oops, sorry. Okay, so now this is done. So now if we do npm run serve, that should go smoothly, hopefully, because otherwise I don't know what it is about. Okay, so I'll go to the page. So we're in the home page. So as soon as we get there, if we have no error, right, we should go and be able to see here the data array of 10. Yeah. Okay, so now we're happy. There is no error. This is working. So now how do you use this data into the page or into the component, depending on what you're doing? So you go back here, and what you need to do is basically make it visible so that you can use it into the view, right? Because remember this is the data and the controller that allows you to use your data in the view. So we're going to see the latter step with the visualization example, but for the moment we're just going to say that we want this data to be set up as some data that we're going to use later. So the way you do this is by, you guessed it, adding a data property here. And you don't want to invent this because it's a little bit finicky there in terms of what he likes to see. So you see it's another function that needs to return an object. And so the data is this object, right? So this function here is just to set this up. Why they're not using directly the object? Your guess is as good as mine. I didn't think about it, but I guess is to implement some dynamic behavior if you want to. Now this means that that this chart data here that I can call data, I can call it as I want, is going to be initialized when the component or the page here is created by view with a value of null, which here it forces you to put something. You can put undefined if you want, because at this point we don't have the data, right? And the idea is that as we load it, we want to set it. So here I've loaded it. So to access it, the view, because we're going to be inside the view the view sets this to the current context, that is this view. So I can say this dot data. Yeah, you see, and you see that it shows it to you there. So this is Vetour that is doing it. If you don't use Vetour and you're stuck with I don't know, you call it some other editor that is not that smart, then you're in a lot of trouble suddenly. Because if you make any typo in there, things are not going to be easy to debug. So this we want to set to the result. Now, if you look into this object, this is not immediately, because it has some header information, so it is not what we want. What we want is result.data, right? So I'm going to put result.data, and then I'm going to result.data. And I'm going to show results so that we see what's in there. Where is it? Okay, so you see, is that right? Yeah, so you see the data is the array, then there is the status, that is the status of the request, that is 200, and so those are standard codes. If you get a 404, you might be familiar with the 404. The status is 404, it means that I can't find this page. Go look somewhere else. The status text is okay because it does work, and here you can see the headers. So those are the famous headers that we've been talking, that where you can use with post and set property values in there and so on. So most of the time you only go and get the data, so you're happy with that. All right. So this is a mechanism that you can use either with Axios, but if we want to import D3, and we can do D3.json in that case, it will work the same basically. Yeah, it's the same same mechanism. So no question on this? No questions. Okay. 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 So once you're done with your app, this I'm going to do it. I don't know if you guys are going to deploy it or we are going to deploy it, but I want to do it because I want to show you what happens here. So here we have our code that is working. Our website is working. Okay, our dashboard, whatever it is. And now we're not going to deploy this, right? It is not practical. What we need is just to get the JavaScript, HTML, and just dump it into a server. So you do this with another tool, with the CLI, sorry, and the way to get it to produce the output is to use the npm here command with run build. So what does it do? We're going to go and look in here. So you see the run build uses the view CLI service with command build. Okay, so it's nothing, and I can just run this if I want. But they've mapped it to npm so that you don't need to guess it. So you just do npm run, and that should work. And that's why if you do React, is more or less the same workflow. They have also a build step, and you also can trigger it with npm. So this takes, depending on your website, for a bit of time, because what it's doing there is actually minifying, is stripping stuff that you're not using, because you might use tons of libraries, but then you only use a little bit of functionality. And then you see that it creates these files here. So you see here, the about is a separate file. It's a separate JS file because we're going to load it dynamically. We say this in the router. The bootstrap things, I think they land in this one. And the code for the app is in here. Yeah. Now, if you look at, we can open this one here. Okay, so you see this looks like the IIFE, the immediately invoked function expression that we saw that D3 does, right? It's exactly the same thing. It's a the software that does the minification does this. And so whatever gets returned from this function is immediately available, right? And you've guessed it, this is compressed so that it doesn't take that much space, and that's why they're giving you the numbers there, so you know how big your app is and how big your pages are, right? Okay, so once you have this, because the CLI is only done to develop, you need another tool. So the tool that they recommend is to install this serve. The -G there is to install it globally so that you can use it anywhere. You don't need to be in this particular folder. And so what this is just a web server. And so there you say serve and start into the dist folder. So that's where all the assets get built. You see? And we have the 5 icon, we have an image folder. So this looks like a regular website with JS. Except that everything is minified in there, and so it's not very useful for you to go look at it. So if we start this, we should, yeah, it tells you that it started a local for the server on port 5000. And so we're going to go and look at it. And you guessed it, this is our app, okay? So all the frameworks again work more or less the same. Okay, so this is good enough. The last thing that I wanted to show on this one is go back to npm run serve. So don't be afraid to build it, just to give it a try to see what it does. You can go and pick in the files. If you do it in the repository for the assignment, there is a .gitignore that will do ensure that the dist folder, I think, doesn't get so you don't need to commit it. when you don't want to. Okay, so here I'm starting it here from the console again, but okay, we have it here. Okay, so now my question here is, we put the loading code. Okay, so let's suppose that the loading code doesn't work. How do you debug it? So put a note that you can go and look at. You can debug the code. We're putting breakpoints in Visual Studio Code, but that basically does the same thing that what we do here in DevTools, because what it does is that it spawns another Chrome instance and connects to it, so that you can trace things in Visual Studio Code, but it's really doing it here. So we're going to do it here because I think most of the time is what you want to do. So how do you get to the code in this thing? And I want to show you because it's a little bit tricky. And okay, so this here you see this is our index page, and this is not useful to you, right? I mean, it did already a good job at putting some comments and things in there, so we understand what it is. But if you can debug the stuff, you're good. So if you want to actually find the app and see it with the pages in a way where you can actually see the source code, you need to do something when you create the pages and when you package them. And this is realized because maybe you didn't see it, but I think it's in there. Maybe not. No, this one we created. Yes, clean. Okay. Okay. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to see. Okay. So the thing that does the packaging is the Webpack. So, and you see that it's listed here. So if you go in here, you have your pages. And okay, good. That's good. I thought that before you had an extra step to set it up to configure it, but you see that things are here. So here we get our Axios, so we can put a breakpoint here. Yeah. And then you reload it, and hopefully we'll get to the breakpoint. Yeah. And we're going to put another one here and continue. Okay, and then we can look at the result and so on. Okay. That's good. So same thing that you do normally, but you need to go and fish it out in here most of the time, inside Webpack. All right. By the way, you may ask where is the component there? The hello world it's been pulled out here. Okay. And obviously you can also load it up and go and debug it. For everything that has to do with data and controller. For stuff that is in here, the only way to debug it is by putting stuff on the page or commenting out blocks of that don't work or that work until you find out what HTML is not working. And we're going to see this with the rest of the stuff here. That is the working view app example. So I'll go through that, and then I think you know everything to do the homework. Okay, so this one, I think we can kill it. We don't need that anymore. Okay. So where are we here? Is that the right one? DWD. So this is the lab. So we want to go ... Yeah, there was something that was missing also. Is this command line? Maybe we can take a peek at it after. CD view app. Okay, so each time you do these view things and you have them inside another repository, you want to start VS Code inside the app and not outside, because otherwise things are a little bit more difficult to work with. So here I'm going to say code minus n to get a new one, dot, and here we go. Okay, so here we only have what we want to see. So you see that we don't have the node, because this one I just pulled it right before the class. So we're going to do npm install. Okay. So if you're unfamiliar with it, you may want to go and read the README and so on, but I think you know these things. Yeah, the file that here was needed before, that seems to be already there, is this one. So this is the 3 lines that that seem to be a default now, because I didn't see a view.config.js in the other in the my view, my app. So this is the one that actually preserves the mapping to the original source code so that you can go and debug it. This thing is when you want to deploy it on the server. We used it last year. For each one of the team, they had a different pass. And so if you develop locally, then / is fine. But if you develop on the server and you want to deploy it, which you do when you want to build it, then this is the pass that was needed. Okay, so this takes a little bit of time. Yeah, some of this library there, the highlights, JS, I wonder why they're in there, because we're not using it in the app, obviously, but it's there. npm install. Whoops. Okay, and then npm run serve, and I'm going to. Okay. Okay. All right, so we got it. Let's see. All right. So this here we've seen it already. So here we have a few more. We have 2 charts here, one with HTML, one with D3. Then we have one example of what are called small multiples. So we're going to look at them in turn. So the first one is just an HTML chart. So this we did already. But here what we're doing different is that we're not hard coding this in HTML. We're importing the data. And this is done, I think, with Axios. And then we map the data to the HTML using Vue dynamically. Okay? So it's done in a JavaScript quasi language that you can use inside the Vue template. And we're going to see how this is done. This is the same with D3. So we import this time the data with D3. And then just plot with D3 inside the page. There are some quirks with it, so you need to be aware of those. And this one is what are called small multiples. So oftentimes you want to compare things. So here you see I'm comparing. So this is the same chart, but it could be for one state and then for another state. Maybe I have 15 of those, 50 of those, right? Or I want to compare trends over time. So I am going to do the same chart multiple times in the page. So for that, the easiest is not to write code for 50 charts, but just to write code once, and then you say, I want this chart, and this is my data, by the way. So you just reuse the same code, right? Which in D3 is, you know that you get that for free, right? You just need to change the data, and then it's going to be mapped on screen for you. And that's what we did here. So this we turned into a view component, and we're passing it the data, and I think with the title also. So we're going to see how this is done. Okay, so these are mechanisms for you to understand, and you can again do this in the other frameworks. But these are mechanisms for you for the project that you may want to use. So let's go look at the code for this one. So this is HTML chart. Okay, so there is not much surprise there. Okay, so I'm using a JSON stringify. We're going to do this in the homework. So this data, if I want to see it here as a string, you need to transform it into a string. JSON stringify does this, and this is what we see, right? Now you see that in order to do this, I'm getting the data. So this my chart data here are part of the model, right? They've been declared here and they've been loaded here. So here it's a little bit more complicated because I'm actually checking if I have the data in the store. Otherwise, I put it in the store, right? So if I have it, I use it, and otherwise I put it in the store. I put it in the store. I put it in the store here. I put it in the store here, and otherwise I use it here. I go get it from the store, right? And the store is the store file. Maybe I should show you that. The in store is similar to the router. You have an index, and here you see that I'm storing my HTML chart data in there, and in the code you see how you can access it. Now these are standard. You need to put state and payload, and then the payload is what you actually want to assign it to. But that's about it. And Vuex is the store. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. All right. So basically the same code that we wrote a moment ago with the store on top. So why use the store? Because these pages, they have their own data, right? This page has its own data. But if I want to load the data in this page and then use it in another page, and I want to avoid to reload it again, then I just put it in the store, and the other page can access the store with the mechanism that is implemented here. Okay, is that making sense? Yes, no? Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, and obviously we do this when the page is first loaded and mounted. Okay, so now is this part, right? That's why we can use this. Now to actually put things to tell Vue to when you compile this file, this is my fake HTML. Make sure that this data, that this string is going to be put in the page, and where the string comes from the data, my model. So you do this by putting the mustaches around it. Yeah. So if I want here and I want to just without, I can do it there. I can do chart data, and I don't know what it's going to print. Maybe it does the right thing. Maybe it does. It's okay. It does the right thing. It used not to do it. So now you see that it's transforming it automatically to a string, and I have it. So the JSON stringify you can forget about if you want, because that does already the right thing. Okay, and this you can do for any variable that you have in your data. Again, the same concept, different mechanisms in React and Angular, but that's about the same idea. Okay, now for creating the charts, we have the data. So what we want to do is iterate through the data and print the label first as an HTML string, and then do a div that we size in the way that we've learned how to do, and put also the value there in the label. Now to do the aesthetics, obviously, is the CSS. So all the CSS goes at the bottom, and you see that it's here, right? And there is nothing particular about it. Now, how do you create these divs sized correctly? well, you can use what are called directives. So this is the directive to do a loop over our data, and you see that it requires a key that you usually set to the index. So item is each element in the chart data. The index is 0, 1, 2, etc. Right? And so here, all I need to do for the label is to class it to label, which is going to give us the Los Angeles here first, and the item object here as the label inside. So you guessed it. If you want to, you're not sure what you need to call, then you can just do item here, and it is going to print the items right before, right? So we see that label and values there are there, right? And you see that they're all as strings at this point, because I think they get turned into strings because we're looking at an object, but yeah, oh, we're using Axios. So Axios, it's not like D3, it's not done for doing charting. So when you ask him to load a CSV, it's going to return what he sees, right? So everything is strings. So don't be surprised that this is a string, right? With D3, we would cast it, but here we don't care too much because we can pass the value directly as pixels, and in HTML, it's a string, so that works. Okay. Okay. So then you see that. Okay. So here we explained this part here for the label. For the bars, it's a little bit more complicated because when we need to size them, we need to set the width of the bar. So here we're doing it with style, right? And we want it in pixels, so that's all seems to make sense. The problem is that we need to use our current value here, right? And to make some operation to it and to turn this into a string. So the way you do this in Vue is that you put the semicolon in front. So you can use on the style, you can use the data that are available here, that in this case is item.value. I can also use chart.data if it makes sense, but here it doesn't, right? And you just do, here we're just doing string operations. Yeah, okay. And so it's in here we write. Okay, so here I'm doing something a little bit. So I'm turning this thing back into a number, and I'm saying, if you are in China or the United States, you should use a different way of formatting this number. So you see that the number has a comma. So that's vanilla JavaScript that allows this with the two local string. Okay, so this does it. So not much else here to see, really. Okay, so I'll do a break. Yeah, and then I'll show you the chart and how to wrap them into a reusable chart, and I think we're done. Fine.
There's no work for the viewer. I don't know. Yeah, they not load the file because the system is forbid to run the script. If you want to see more details, please refer to.
Okay, so I would try to Google it. Did you try to Google the here? Maybe not with you, but this part here.
Okay.
With Node, you cannot run blah blah blah. Yeah, and you see here they have this PS security exception. My guess is that also unauthorized access. So my guess is the file is there, but it's telling you that it doesn't have the right to go run it.
Oh,
So maybe try to do it outside of Visual Studio Code, because Visual Studio Code is a little bit extra careful here. Yeah, just try in the console. Go see if the file is there in the first place.
so
And I don't know why it's PS1. Why is it PS1?
I don't know.
Yeah, so I will go and look it up.
Okay. Let me see.
Yeah. I would also try in a terminal. Yes. Yes. Oh, this is just the bootstrap. Yeah, just so you can put it in the. So this is with the view out, no? Oh, it's just the bootstrap. Okay. Yeah, you can put it wherever you like, where it makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, not the I think what I'm asking you to do is to use the dashboard, right?
Yeah.
Take this one. Yeah.
So when we downloaded it, and there was a folder called dashboard which had
Yeah.
which was supposed to put that folder.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that index.
Is it?
I think so. No? It's part of the same block, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just for you to know how to drop something in there, right? Okay. So this is not good, right?
No. So then we put
Yeah. 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 Careful. Good. No, where is the box?
Okay, I open this one. And it was this.
Oh, so this is what we see.
Ah,
Yeah. So it seems to be see, it's a fixed case when both Windows and Mac of Node are installed in the same directory. Yeah, yeah. So did you try to run it in the DOS window?
So how can you do that?
So you open the DOS and you try to run it.
Oh,
The yeah, the terminal.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the account. Okay, that's fine. So can you type the view there? It's just you.
Oh, oh.
Yeah. I think it's a Visual Studio Code, but this is
So can I
extra,
just?
extra careful. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Oh. So,
Yeah,
so I
and-
can like have the exercise six like so. Huh? Oh,
We stopped it.
oh.
Yeah, set it up. I'll take it.
Okay. Okay. So can I just put some of the command in there?
Yeah.
And
If you create my app, yeah.
actually I need to go to the task at the same time.
Yeah, or you can move. You're trying to create a folder, and then you can move it where you want, or you go where you want to be created.
Or like I can initially create a folder and then
Anywhere, yeah, yeah. I
Oh.
did it in my own directory.
also not in the lab folder.
Okay, ultimately you want it in the lab folder because you want to commit it, but you can probably it's better to do it in the lab folder if you
So,
have a Git
okay,
there
okay.
instance.
So both are okay.
I
Whenever-
think, but in the case you create it outside, make sure not to add the .git to the repository.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know that. Okay, so
Yeah.
just like
So you can create it here,
Okay,
and
okay.
then you remove the .git.
so don't
and you
forget
put it
to
there.
put request on this one. Don't forget to upload the
Yeah.
this file.
because
Okay.
you
Okay,
can see
okay,
that I
okay,
did it.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Got
Okay.
it, got it. Thank you. I'm gonna try and if I still fail that, I will come to Rob sorry tomorrow. Thank you
Okay.
very
Cool.
much.
Sure. Okay. So I'll get started again. So that we finish up on this one quickly, and we can go on with the class. Otherwise, we'll be 1 day off again. Okay, so the diffree chart is basically the same thing, except that we're using diffree instead of using HTML. So we need to import diffree. This is the way you do it. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. It's there. Here, same thing. You can forget the stringify here. This will work as well. The usual, right? So we create this VG in the template, then we set our data similar to what we did with the HTML. Now in the mounted, we do the same thing to get the data, except that we use the diffree.json here. And once we're done, then here we call a function that is going to realize the chart. This bar chart, and that you do by adding a method. So again, you need to list a key property value with method and an object. That's the way Vue wants it, so don't think too much. And then you pass your function here that is going to do what you expect. Okay? And the code there is obvious because you did it already. So that's basically it. Don't get confused. You see, you need to just know where to put your code. The framework does the rest. The last bit here that is different is down here. You need to put the stuff in front of the HTML. That is because Vue doesn't know that you're creating SVG and that you want to apply the style to SVG. And what Vue does by default is that for each one of these that he sees in the template, is going to turn it into an ID, so that there is no chance that things mix up in terms of name conflicts. So here, because it doesn't know about this text label, it's not going to see it in the template because we're not using it. But D3 is going to create and use this dynamically. Then you need to put these 3 greater signs there in front to basically tell Vue hands off. This is used by something that we need, that is needed for our purpose, and it needs to stay named exactly the same. So just the little thing there. If you remove it, obviously the things are not going to get styled as you see it. The last one is the component. So this one is the reusable bar chart. So I'm going to open it. So you see it basically looks the same as the previous page. We're with the SVG on top. We're loading D3. But then here things change a little bit. So we have this new thing here that are props. So these are properties that you can set. And here what we're saying is that we have a property for title and for data. And you need to say the type of the data. So with D3 it's easy. We know it's always an array. So that's why this is array. The rest is the same here for the drawing. And here in the mounted, we just say draw the bar chart. We don't need to load the bar chart because the data, because you're passing in the data. Okay. And so this is done in, and you see the rest is the same again, where we use the triple greater sign here to scope the style. But that's basically it. Okay. Now, how do you use this, and what are these props? So if you look into small multiples, so the reusable component is bar chart here, and its name is D3 bar chart. Where is it? Oh, it's here. The name is there. It's bar chart. Okay, that's how you instantiate it in another page. Small multiples is here. So you see here we create this element that is a bar chart after importing it. So this is the way you need to import it. You don't invent it. You do it with the @ sign there, but that's basically it. Here I don't know why I have D3 because probably we don't need it unless I'm using D3 JSON to load the data. Okay, that's the only reason. And here, because I want to load multiple times the data, I'm doing this with the promise.all. So you can get an array of promises, and then you just when they're all resolved, then you're back in the .10. So this is just the way it is. You do it, and I'm showing it to you so that you know how to do it if you want to load multiple data sets to put into different charts or the same charts, right? The other option to do this is that you nest the promises. You say d3.json, you load the first one. In the .then you do again d3.json and you load another one, right? And so you end up with this nested data structure that is not that nice to look at. So the promise all kind of simplifies that. So the bar chart component, you need to import it, and then you need to define it as a component. Same thing as we saw with the hello view. And so here we just declare that we have this bar chart component. If you forget to do it, it's going to tell you that I don't know what is this bar chart. And here You guessed it, we're going to pass the data sets that are defined here in the data. That is an array, right? And so we can access array of 0 and array of 1 for the two data sets that we've loaded. And here we pass the title. So you see that the title here is just a string. So it doesn't have the semicolon because we're not using data from this view. But data set is data from this view. So this string is not just a string. It needs to know about it. So we put the semicolon in front. You see the semicolon here? Yep. Yeah, and this stuff, I think, I don't know what this is. I think I'm listing the data sets here. If we go to small multiples, yeah, we have two data set index 0 has 10 rows, there's index 1 has 10 rows, is this loop. Okay? That we've seen already, so it's all good. Okay, so I think we're done with that. I'm going to move to the topic of the day, that is the lecture, hopefully. All right, so hopefully we can at least get half of it done. Okay, so you remember that we discussed the pre-attentive processing early on. So this is about things that you're able to see very quickly in the display. There is no thinking. If it's there, it's there. And otherwise, you realize it very quickly. The typical example is when here you see the red dot among other dots that are colored differently. So the red dot is unique and is going to be seen pre-attentively. It means that I can just flash this to you and you realize it. So it's a so-called universal property in that everybody works the same in respect to that. And you take it in one single glimpse. That means that you don't do any saccade movements with your eyes. You don't need to start moving your eyes around and looking around in the display. You just see it at once. Typically, 200 milliseconds. So really a tenth of a second in most cases. You don't need to think about, so that's why it doesn't involve attention. It's regardless if you start practicing this during your spare time, it's not going to work better. So either you see it or you don't. It doesn't depend if you're familiar with the shapes or the color or the object that are pre-attentive. It doesn't depend on the number of what are called distractors. So here it would be on the first example, the number of blue dots. You can put as many as you want. If there is a red dot, I'm going to see it. Okay. And this is useful to highlight something and present it very quickly to the audience. So the vocabulary for these pre-attentive features are here the targets and the distractor. The targets is what you're going to see. The distractor is everything that that is interfering with the target. So in this case, in this example, here the target is the red dot. The distractors are the blue dots, and they differ in a channel that is the color, the channel for the color. So the target is red, the distractor is blue. The shape is being the same because this is just a dot. Okay. So whenever you have you're mixing up some of the channels, such as shape or color, then you end up having what is called interference. So here you see that the distractor is a different shape than the target. And it's still pre-attentive, but it's a little bit harder to see. Yeah. So where the target is present on the right, you see that the red dot is here. So if you would flash this, you would probably see it. But it's probably harder to see pre-attentively than with the blue dots, because here we're sharing a different property that is not the, before it was the shape, here we're showing the color. And there is more interference with color than with shape, as you can see there, because those are more similar in the way we perceive them. So this fact that some depending on which channel you're working on, the interference might be more important or less important. That is encapsulated in this idea of feature hierarchy. So you have some features that are easier to detect than others. In the example that we saw, the color is easier to detect than the shape. And here you see the typical example where the red dots here, clearly we can see a boundary here. And here we still see it that it's not as clear, okay? So you can still see those pretty attentively. But if statistically, if you ask a number of people, they might have more trouble depending on which level of the hierarchy you are at. So whenever this breaks, that's called a conjunction search. So whenever you cannot do a pre-attentive recognition of the target, then the way you operate is that you need to do a search that involves looking at the target and the distractor on different channels. So here, for instance, you see that we're mixing up both color and shape between the target and the distractors, and suddenly it becomes very difficult to find the target, right? And so, because the features are the same for some of the channels, so here we have both the shape in the distractor and also the color at the same time, and that confuses the brain. And in some cases, you are still able to do a pre-attentive search, but most of the time, no, right? And that depends on how the display is set up, right? If you don't have many of the red squares, my guess is that you're defaulting to doing a pre-attentive search between a red target and a blue dot, a red dot and a blue dot, and that's obviously is going to work easily. So what are the types of things that you can detect pre-attentively? You have them listed there. So either a target, which can be a point or some type of object that is well defined in space. You can also detect the boundaries. We saw an example earlier, but there are also things that involve movement, such as region tracking. So if you have a bunch of a pattern that is moving around, then that you will see it very quickly. And you can also do some counting and estimation. If you have 3 dots or 10 dots, you're going to get the ballpark figure. You won't be able to say exactly how many, but you will say that it's either a few or many. Okay, and oftentimes it's good enough. So these are some examples of pre-attentive features in different channels, and they all involve some features that are useful to the brain to understand visual information. And so those are the color, the orientation, the size, the motion, and the stereoscopic depth. Stereoscopic depth meaning that you're looking for 2 eyes. And if one object appears closer to another object, that's what it boils down to. So you can gauge the distance between objects pre-attentively. That's what this is saying. So here you see some examples. So the spatial grouping here is that I know that I can see very quickly that there is a group of objects, right? So there you see, and it's always that as soon as the properties of what you're going to see of the target are different enough than the distractors, then you usually see this pre-attentively. So I'll let you, for the sake of moving on, to look at the video. But this is basically the video that I'll play it very quickly, maybe. That flashes the red dot and the blue dot, and you can see that it's very simple, as long as we're not in a situation where we need to do a conjunction search, right? And this is the typical example that we're starting to get to here as things get more and more complicated. Now, people that work in design, they use this effect and they call it in a different name. They call it the pop-out effect. So that's what you'll see in the web reading. So typically it's about the pre-attentive tasks applied to visual queries, because that's what designers are interested in. And this is some illustration from where that shows you the same. That is that yes, here it's easy because the dot is very different from everything else that is these numbers, and so I'm going to see that there is a dot in here no matter what. And here is the same bunch of people, and this guy has a yellow jacket, and so you can bet that I'm going to see a yellow jacket. Red jacket, maybe, because there are a couple here. But that seems to be less apparent. So again, from where? So this puts things in context. So if you look in the space that spans the properties of the target and the distractor. So in this case here, we have color and size. And if we try to place this object in this space, we'll see that here it's very easy. The pop-out effect is very obvious, meaning that this feature can be recognized very attentively. And in this graphic, you see that this happens because all the distractors, they are down here, while the target is farther away, right? So this is what the brain seems to be using in order to make that determination. So as soon as things get a little bit muddier here and here worse, right? The target is right surrounded by the distractor, then it becomes very difficult, and you need to do a conjunction search. So you, as a designer, if the information that you want to put forward is such that it needs to be seen very quickly, what you want to avoid is the situations where you create a conjunction search, so that people need to start scanning the graphic to understand, to get the information. Yeah, so this one, I think I need to play it. And yeah, I cannot put the sound, but so this is a video for a car commercial, and so it's a street. You see the car there that is in the middle, and so things are happening, and you see that there is this blinking that is going on that is bothering. You think that something is wrong there, but if you hear the voiceover that is more professional than me talking about it, you'll be more less inclined to look at the blinking. But what is happening is that everything is changing. You think that not much has changed in the street, but again, everything has changed. Was changed around. Each time there was a blink, then something was changing, and you didn't see. So here there is a woman with a cat, and you see there are bicycles there that disappeared. All the houses have been repainted, and so this is a little bit of similar but different effect from what we saw last time. That was the inattentional blindness. That is, you're paying attention to something else, and then something changes, and you don't even see it, right? So that's the attentional blindness. This one is the change blindness. So this is happening because of the blinking. During the blinking, the brain just shuts off. And you use a part of the memory that is called the very short-term memory or iconic memory. That's not big enough to hold all the information from the picture. So each time, the next time that the picture reappears with a change, your brain doesn't realize it because it is not stored in the first place. Okay, so here to put it in words is that you're not able to detect something that changes briefly in the visual field. So this we have it, but you don't realize it. Each time you move your eyes very quickly, because you're creating this motion blur, then the brain does the same thing. It does this change blindness, and it basically cuts in the information. So your brain doesn't get overwhelmed with bogus information, and there things you're not able to understand what was there before and what is there now. So changes get lost in translation. And that's why you really need to be careful when you start doing interaction and animation on charts, because if you have a sudden jump from one frame to another frame, is like having an interruption into the visual information that gets to the brain, and you end up with this very same effect where things may change, but people are not understanding what has changed, right? So with the data in graphics, what you want to do is to be able to track the data as, say, you go from a bar chart to a pie chart. You need to be able to understand either track the colors if they encode a different category, or the shape of the object. And this is encapsulated into this idea of ensuring that you have what is called object constancy. So you want that as you transform things, the brain is still able to track it. Okay. So what type of operation is this affecting? So each time you want to start filtering the data, so you remove some of the data from the graphic. People need to understand which one went away and which one are left there, right? So if you just snap your fingers and you give me a different picture, then it's very difficult for me to remember to understand what happens, right? Reorganizing the data, if you're resizing, it's basically the same thing, right? And obviously when you change forms with the example that I gave a moment ago. So this video, I think, yeah, this is from Jeffrey here, and it basically shows you that in some examples of that, right? So when you move from one form to another, how can you animate things so that they can be tracked consistently? And so you have this object constancy that is useful for people to track the data and understand what is happening with the data so this is useful for doing data exploration in particular. So as you can see from their example. So I'll let you look at it in detail, but you see. So yeah, you need to hear the voiceover because it's giving also some examples or when it doesn't make sense, when you do animations that are not useful for tracking things, right? So you saw the bars going up and down. If the category changes, it stays the same. So then that makes sense because the quantity is changing from high to low. But then if you are changing at the same time the categories, then it's impossible for people to understand what is going on, right? So and there the animation, you can animate it, but is not mapped to the same data, and so it's useless. So you want to be a little bit careful with that. So the second part, I think I'll go on for another minute, but the second part is going to be about how to do all these animations with D3 from the technical standpoint. And that involves a number of things. The first one of which is how do they get triggered, and then what you need to do to update the visualization. So to update the visualization, you want to do all the things that we've discussed a moment ago. That is that you want to start by updating the data. For instance, if you want to sort or filter your data set, that's the first thing that you do. So this is working on with D3 on arrays, right? Then you need to redo your data join. But the data join, we for the moment we do it in array order, right? So if I move the item number 3 in position 1, suddenly my data join is not useful for tracking things, right? Because if it's already in the page, D3 is not going to do anything. And if I do a new data join and I erase what I had in the page, then I've lost what was there, so I cannot do a transition, right? So we need to sort this out. If you have graphics with scales and axes, obviously you need to go and update those. Say because your data set suddenly changes, and so the time period is doubled, so you need to adjust for that. And that you can also animate. And the last thing here is what does it mean really to animate all this transition? You have functions that allow you to start slow and then accelerate and then go back to a slower movement, so that people see where things start and where things fall in place. Okay, so we're going to see all of this next Wednesday and go on with the lab.